Welcome into the Ochsner Andrews Sports Medicine Institute podcast studio here at Radio Row for another episode of NewOrleans.Football presented by PJ's Coffee. If you're in the market for a new car, make sure you check out my guy Matt Bowers in one of his many dealerships throughout the region. Best customer care, best cars, best prices, all that stuff. So make sure you go check out Matt for your new or pre-owned car needs. Our first topic today is presented by Shea Barrett Insurance. We've now talked to Kellen Moore a couple times here in the media availabilities. Mike, just kind of your number one takeaway, just 1 point that stands above them all. What's the one thing someone calls you up and says, what do you think of Kellen Moore? Like, what's the one thing you're going to?
This guy loves offense.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't choose a career and decide to major in it and learn it. Like, he bleeds it. He breathes it. I think he likes talking football just in general. I mean, we talked about the stories that have probably been embellished a little. He wouldn't play along necessarily as a kid, but, like, he was what, 8, 9 years old, a coach's son, buying stuff off the internet, playbooks, watching his dad's game tapes that his dad's got for him, like because of his access to get NFL and college tape. And he's behaved that way as an adult. He behaved that way as a quarterback who was trying to be a coach as quarterback. He became an NFL backup quarterback, and he was like, how can I help the coaching staff? He immediately became an offensive. He almost quit trying to become a backup quarterback so he could become an offensive quarterback. And every time he talks about offensive football, like, you see his eyes light up. Like, he just loves the concepts and the strategy of the game. I don't know what that means for being a head coach, but he's passionate about that part of this game.
For me, like, the main thing, kind of talking to him a couple times, you can see how he has some command. You know, like, I'm not sure that you can really tell what that's going to be like in a meeting room or anything like that until you actually get in there. But he's not like a big, boisterous Nick Sirianni type. Like, Nick Sirianni talks and, like, he kind of has, like, you know, there's some gravitas to just, like, his build and, like, how he talks and everything. I'm not sure that Kellen Moore is that type of person. But he has his own style of like grabbing your attention with what he's saying. And I think that's important. Like, he's not somebody that I think is going to be easily tuned out. When you ask him a question about how he does something or why he does it, he has an answer for it. I think that's very important. The answers make sense.
Yeah.
You can tell there's more there than he's willing to say in a media setting on some of these things, but he seems incredibly intelligent, and I think you can lead through that. And I think that's kind of like his little hidden power is that you kind of look at him and you talk to him, but then, like, he starts talking and, like, he kind of has your attention, and he has a way about him that I think is relatable too. He seems like a normal person, like, and I think that's a quality that's important. Like, he's relatable. Rizzy's a relatable individual because, like, he just seems like a regular guy, like when it's all said and done. And I think underneath it, like, Kellen Moore is someone that, you know, laughs when he has a sense of humor. Like, he can laugh. Like, sometimes these people don't have that. And, like, I think that stuff, like, helps you, gets you buying, it makes people like you. And I think getting your team to like you is a big thing. And he's been successful multiple places now, kind of, you know, in that role.
Well, I think the two answers we just gave go hand in hand, right? Like, what is his command? What is his presence? His command and his presence is he knows what the hell he's doing and what he's talking about. Now, does that mean he's going to be great at yelling at the guy who's 5 minutes late for a meeting every day? I don't know. But he is going to be great at this one thing, and he's going to be passionate about this one thing. And he is. He's like, I talked to Saquon Barkley about him the other night, and Saquon Barkley lit up too. Like, Saquon Barkley loves talking football with Kellen Moore. Saquon Barkley has an idea during the week or has an idea on the sideline during the game. I can't wait to tell this to Kellen Moore because Kellen Moore is going to be like, all right, how can I draw that up and put that in my game plan? That is how he's going to win over a team. Now, when you're 1-3, how's he going to handle that? What's his crisis management like? If there's a locker room divide, how's he going to handle that? I mean, look, that just presented the last staff with challenges. But you understand where his command and his presence comes from. And look, we can compare him to Pete Carmichael Jr. and Clint Kubiak, and it is different than those guys. They all have the same, they're all kind of like football nerds. And that's just what they do, and they're insulated or whatever. His personality is a little different than those other two. There's a little bit more of a self-confidence. You do remember this is like one of the all-time leading quarterbacks in college football history. This is not a guy who's just been in a room cranking tape. He was a quarterback that threw for like 5,000 yards.
He beat Derek Carr by 50 points. Yeah, that's the thing that I think kind of gets lost on it is that like he's a player. Like he's been in the rooms. Yeah. Like he's succeeded at a high level. He's been around football coaches his whole life. like if he doesn't know how to command the room, like that would probably be kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Like I think maybe
that's a little more Matt Saracen than Jason Street, but he was still a quarterback.
But like I think it's overblown a little bit though. Like honestly, like after you kind of like think about it, you're like, wait a minute, like he's led a huddle, like he's won a lot of games. He was a successful
games in college,
successful coach. I asked Lane Johnson about the accountability thing and how he like doles it out. He's like, oh man, like highly accountable room. You know, he can bring it when he needs to bring it. He has the command of the room. Everybody pays attention to what he's saying. Like, great coach, great leader. So, you know, that's – I don't know. We'll see. Like, we'll see how it goes. But I feel better about, like, the unknown aspects of it after spending some time around them. But, again, we're going to see. Like, but, yeah, look, the divide thing, though, like, I think we started to see a divide pop up when the wide receivers were complaining about not getting the ball. And then that went away, and they're in the Super Bowl. So – I think there's proof positive how you would handle that too. But, you know, again, you have Nick Sirianni behind you on that. Like maybe it's a little bit different, but I'm much less concerned about all that stuff after having been around him for a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're probably seeing the positives. You know, that always happens, and it's always rosy when your team's 0-0 and you're the one being courted. But if
look on that though, like it would be insane if they were hiring a coach and you can look at it and go like, I understand why they're doing this. Like that's the thing about all these conversations and negative.twitter.com. Like it's like, well, they liked it at the time. Like, well, look, dude, like if you're hiring the offensive coordinator in the Super Bowl, like if you can't look at it and find like, oh, this makes sense. Like this is how it could work. There's a huge red flag there. So, like, that's not even, like, I don't even need to get into, hedge it. Like, no, it makes sense. Like, it makes sense why this guy would have been on that list.
What I was going to say is it has made me think the last 2 days. I've said a million times, I'm still a defender of Clint Kubiak. I think Clint Kubiak is still going to have success in the NFL. I really do. I'd like to buy stock on him at what his stock is right now. I would not like to see Clint Kubiak have to sit there with the media for an hour, 3 days in a row at the Super Bowl. I mean, it would be, he would win that battle. 30 minutes into his table, people would be like, I can't think of anything else to ask you. You have now one word answered your way through everything we could think to. Kellen Moore is not like that. There's nervous laughter and there's, keeping some things behind. But he enjoys telling some of these old stories. Like I thought there was one really good question asked of him the other night about, what's it like? He was asked about Derek Carr because he played against Derek Carr in college. What would that be like if you coached someone like Derek Carr? And he goes, well, remember, I was Dak Prescott's backup, and then a year later I was Dak Prescott's quarterback's coach. Like, I've gone through that process. I was coaching half my teammates the year after I stopped playing for the Cowboys. Yeah, there's a transition there, but it's not something that was too uncomfortable for him.
Yeah, look, he's handled it well, too. You're getting asked a lot of questions by a lot of faces you've never seen before, and you're exposed for, 2 hours, about hour and a half, whatever it is. And, like, in your mind is don't step in a trap the whole time. Yeah. Like, that can't be an easy dance to do. And then, as you sit there, there's just, like, waves of people coming up, like, asking about, the job or, like, trying to get him to say something. And, like, he wasn't doing none of that either. So I think, like, once you take that off, like, there's probably going to be a little bit more of an opening up, too, as well on top of it. But, look, he seems smart to me. I think he's someone that there's a lot to learn from. If you're asking me to pick an offense between him and Kubiak, like, there's no debate. Like, I would much rather have Kellen Moore running my offense than Clint Kubiak. I think he's good at what he does. Hearing how he blends to his talent, I think, is very important. We already kind of have talked about that, but, just hearing the philosophy behind it, just, sometimes those common sense things are the most important things. And,
get your microphone ready. I'm going to ask you something in a minute. But another answer I liked from Clint Kubiak on that was, like, even on, how much of your offense is West Coast, how much of it is the number system or whatever, he goes, I've now been an offensive coordinator in 4 different systems, so I'm multilingual now, which is pretty funny to recall. Nick saying that don't step into a trap is what these guys do. But you think of Zack Baun just like me? Me and Brandon talked to Zack Baun for 45 minutes yesterday, and I think he had it written on a card in front of him. Don't step into a trap. Don't step into a trap.
No,
he was on guard.
For sure. I came out, I asked him one question, and he was like kind of like speechless on it. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know, like.
He like, good for him. He's like, I'm up for NFL Defensive Player of the Year. I don't want to ruin everything for my Philly teammates by being in a headline, Baun trashes Saints or something like that. But he felt like every question was a try for like, no, man, we're just talking about how crazy this is that you just were a backup in this locker room and now you're the NFL Defensive Player of the Year in the same locker room. And he's like, I love it here. I know what you're trying to get me to say. It's great. I promise. I love it.
Nah, he tried to knock it out the way early. Just like, hey, man, I loved my time in New Orleans. They drafted me. We had our kid here. And then, like, after that, he was good on it.
I hit him with the, like, how the hell did they miss us? And he was just like, I don't know.
I don't even know how to answer that question.
Is that what he said?
That's what he said to you. He goes, I don't even know how to answer that question. And what I wrote was, that's the most incendiary thing he said in the whole hour was, like, him saying, I don't know, was like at least agreeing that the premise made sense. It is crazy.
He's such a nice guy, though, man. Shout out to him. You know who else is a nice guy? Brooks Kubena, who came on our show or stopped by our table earlier this week. I guess it wasn't today. We're going to have different colored shirts on and everything. But Brooks gave some insight into covering Kellen Moore the last year with the Eagles. We're going to play that sound now. All right, now joined by my guy, Brooks from The Athletic, who for my money, my actual money that I pay, covers the Eagles better than anybody in the business. Obviously, there's a lot of tie-ins here. There's some players that used to be Saints. There's a coach that might be a Saint at some point. So I guess let's start there. Spending the year covering Kellen Moore, kind of came into a situation that felt like, at least from a distance, needed a little bit of healing just to kind of get everything back on the same track. What have you just seen from him? Let's start with the leadership perspective of just how he's kind of commanded that room and, frankly, some strong personalities. And it's kind of, we heard a couple peeps throughout the season, but mostly he's kept things quiet and on a track to success.
Yeah, so early in the year, when they played the Cowboys for the first time, I talked to pretty much every assistant coach who worked with there. And it's played out in terms of how I've followed that up with some of the players on the Eagles, is how he connects with players and as a leader is by getting players involved in the plays. He's not like a, hey, rah-rah guy. He comes up and says, with the playbook, says, hey, what do you want to run? What do you want to do? You want to run this trick play? Or you want to run outside zone? What works for you? And then they get bought in, and then they get excited, and then they get invested. And that's played out with the greatest running back the Eagles have ever had in Saquon Barkley. It helps to have that. Whether the Saints have that kind of talent across the board is another conversation. But yes, he himself, like, that was not his style before. He'd never run an offense like this before with the Cowboys or whatever. We thought they were going to come in and run a lot of shotgun-oriented, high-level passing type offense. That's not what they've done. He, by connecting with players and saying, all right, so week 5 bye week, this is the turning point of the entire season for the Eagles. Jalen Hurts was second most turnovers out of all quarterbacks in the league, and they were 2-2, and things weren't going well. They almost lost here in New Orleans in that game. Were it not for Barkley and a major third down conversion, but the offensive lineman basically said, "Why are we throwing so much? We got Saquon Barkley in the backfield.
Yeah,
why are we doing this?" And for Kellen Moore to be flexible enough to say, and working with Nick Sirianni deserve credit in that too, to say, "You're right. Let's go into this." Jalen Hurts has played more in a conservative role. He's taking more sacks because they know that even though it pains a lot of Eagles to watch and say, well, he's getting the most time in the pocket more than anybody, but they know when they punt, they're going to most likely get it back with a top-ranked defense, and they're going to run this defense. So that's a long way of saying that Moore's leadership runs through how he listens to his players and involved with them. And I think if you take that into a team that has some building to be done, that's also important because you're getting invested in players that you need to get the most out of. So I think that would probably be the way that he sells himself in certain interview sessions. So, that's how I think you've seen that play out with him this time.
Does he get credit? I mean, did Kellen Moore get direct credit for the two Saints players crashing into each other on the Dallas Goedert conversion?
It was a nice round. It was a nice round. I don't think anybody. It's funny. There are times where you see you try and figure out credit, and all of them. You never know when they're lying.
Yeah.
It's like Nick Sirianni will say, "Oh, I called that play," whenever it's wrong, and that maybe Kellen did, or if it was Jalen to a check. So those are kind of hard to get through. But yeah, the passing element, especially on mesh routes, and like Devontae Smith getting through on the Cleveland Browns to win the game in that way, that was a very similar situation. So more Moore has that influence.
So you mentioned, and I guess I didn't even realize early in the season, I forgot they were 2-2, including the Saints win. They should have lost that game. That they were saying we should be running more. Obviously, I think it was a lot more high profile 2 months later when everybody's saying we should be passing more. And A.J. Brown seemed like, how did he navigate that? Was the fact that he said, all right, I'll show everybody that we could pass the ball if we wanted to. Did that quiet all of that? Or?
No, I mean, I think that was pretty misconstrued. Just when it was complicated, so it took a little nuance. But like what was actually going on is like the Panthers game, any time that you need, when they say passing is a problem, it's passing within the confines of how they do it. There's a lot more weight on the passing plays that they have just because you're doing it less in the situation you need them to deliver. So whenever that wasn't happening in that game, it starts to exacerbate the issue. The Panthers are within a drop catch of beating you, and now you're ticked about the entire scenario and that you want everybody, and they all hold each other to a high standard. So it's never a personal thing. They get angry at each other because they want to win.
Yeah.
That's number one that I think a lot of people misunderstand about A.J. Brown. And then they come out the next week, and so that week, talking to Kellen Moore, and you can kind of see, like, his mild irritation at questions of, like, the passing is, like, you don't, like, kind of, I'm not putting words in his mouth, but, like, my way of thinking is, like, you don't understand, like, what we're trying to do and why it didn't work, and this, like, for that particular game is not going to be how it influences with the Steelers because their defense is completely different. And I'd always said that there was probably a game plan on the shelf that was collecting dust that they'd end up passing for as much as they did. And it happened to be the Steelers because it worked out that way. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, the only time that they get 100 yards was the week immediately after. Yeah. So how the passing game works in this is take the Commanders game where it was still a one-score game. It's 4th and 5. And A.J. Brown is in a one-on-one, and part of that's because of how good Saquon Barkley is and having Jalen Hurts as a zone read option. That opens up there. A lot of fascinating things in the Chiefs matchup. That's part of that. But, you know, being able to see that, recognize it, and Jalen delivering a dime along the sideline, like using those things, Kellen Moore's been able to recognize that. And it's just isolated and more weight because he's passing less. And whenever that's a problem, a lot of people, magnify it.
How difficult is it just with all them personalities, you think, just to keep everybody kind of happy? Because there's a lot of star power and a lot of guys that we've seen at different times be outspoken about, hey, I want the ball, I want to make my plays. Like, it seems like it could be a very combustible situation if you aren't, like, really on top of kind of managing.
If you're not winning.
Yeah.
If you're not winning, then what's the point? So that's why it was such a dysfunction last year, because you're trying so many things and none of it's working, and they all know how good they are. And it's not working, and you lose trust. I remember talking to Jason Kelsey last year. I think the first time when they lost to the 49ers, they got killed by the 49ers. And it was basically about trust in the team and the coaching staff. And he said, you don't lose faith in the coaching staff until it starts to pile up. Now, I returned to him on that question later, and, like, you know, they're not going to acknowledge that kind of thing. But that is when you start losing trust in the situation. So
we don't know have no idea what you're talking about in New Orleans. That never happened to New Orleans at all this year.
But, like, A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are blocking their asses off. You know, like watching them on Saquon Barkley's opening touchdown run against the Commanders. A.J. Brown, if you look, he actually gets pancaked by Jordan Mailata on that play because he's blocking somebody and doing a really good job of it. Then Mailata takes two guys and shoves him down. And A.J.'s laughing about it. He's on the sideline, and you can see him how he's interacting with Saquon because it's working.
Yeah.
And they know that when they invest, they're going to be in the Super Bowl. So I think, particularly with A.J. Brown, I think he's, like, if you had a draft and you had to start and you had to pick a wide receiver, you'd probably pick him. And if there's a debate on that, then I think that's more the root of what would frustrate him, is people don't think he's the best wide receiver because of what he's asked to do and the limitations. Now, Jalen Hurts is excellent in different ways as a quarterback, but he's, like, you're not going to see elements of A.J. Brown's game because of how it works with the rest of it. So all that together, is kind of how that plays out.
And do you feel like Moore's ready to take a step up and
I think so.
lead a team?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's his third time around, and he's shown that he can be adaptable to different scenarios. He's shown that he can go into what was not a very easy situation with his coaching staff, because there were a lot of questions about how hands-on Nick Sirianni would be, he's prideful, he's emotional, he's all these things, yes, and he's also very good at other parts of his managerial style, but that was not an easy place to go into. Because you got to have less ego, I think, to be in that situation, and to have a coach who just went to the Super Bowl a year ago and is only having to fire people because of the collapse and the pressure of that. And now he has to have the humility of bringing a guy in to fix a stale offense, in Sirianni's own words. And then to be able to sit there and say, hey, this is what we should do, and then get pushback, but not turn into an angry situation or a prideful thing and work towards the right answer. That's what they did. So that, I think, is an ultimate thing for a head coach resume, is to show that you can do that, because it's not going to be easy. Generally, if you're getting hired by a team, it's because they fired somebody because the team was not doing well. So how adaptable can you be? And I think he's definitely proven that. We're with the Saints, and yeah, there's work to be done.
It's exactly what I was just about to ask you with, is I think people forget. I think people think this is an easy job. They're just in the Super Bowl. They have Saquon Barkley. But the dysfunction that led to them cratering at the end of last season, losing that playoff game to Tampa Bay. So how much of this offense is Nick Sirianni's offense? How much is Kellen Moore's offense? Or maybe better yet, as it pertains to the Saints, is how much can we expect? Like, what can we watch in the Eagles and be like, that is Kellen Moore, and you'll probably see him bring that to the Saints?
Oh, I wish I'd watched enough Saints tape to let you know.
Yeah.
It's so as it relates to the Eagles, though, like the parts that are zone read game and Jalen Hurts running the ball and quarterback designed runs in the tush push and with a brotherly shove, whatever you want to call it, that's Sirianni's element of looking in the past and what he did with Shane Steichen. When you see the Eagles bringing a fullback for the first time ever under Sirianni, that's Kellen Moore. When you see some of these mesh routes, some of the like passing game elements, that's Kellen Moore. When you see Saquon Barkley being used in check down situations against the blitz, how they've cleaned up the pocket, that's Kellen Moore. I think that's probably an understated thing about what's happened with the Eagles. Last year, Jalen Hurts was terrible against the blitz, and it's not all his fault. It was also discombobulation of all things that they were trying to try. The first thing Kellen Moore said when he got there, the most important thing, clean operation for the quarterback. And he give him answers. And I remember talking to John Kitna, a former quarterback, and he was a quarterback coach for the Cowboys, worked with Kellen Moore. And he said, like, the one thing you don't want is to go in and have gray area as a quarterback. I want black and I want white. I want to know, what am I going to do whenever I get this guy in my face, whenever everything breaks down. I don't want to have to, like, think, whoa, what am I supposed to do? And watching Jalen Hurts this year, he's been decisive. Sometimes it's been, taking a sack, but that's a decision. You do that as well. Sometimes I think there have been times where he needs to throw the ball out, but sometimes Jalen Hurts, he's a quarterback who very much buys in and decides and does what he's being told, and also can, do some things that he's good at. And I'm kind of digressing into this because I think it's important in terms of talking about Kellen Moore, because Jalen Hurts, I did a story about him and talked to coaches and players who had worked with him. And I talked to Lincoln Riley, who was his head coach at Oklahoma. And he said before Jalen Hurts even ever went to Oklahoma, they talked on the phone for 20 hours. 20 hours. He was on the road recruiting at the time, and he wouldn't go out for dinner. He would go sit down in the hotel room and sit down and take takeout, because he knew for 3 hours he was going to be talking to Jalen Hurts on the phone. What are we going to run? Is this right for me? Do you think this is going to work? And whenever he got there, same thing. So whenever people were running about Jalen Hurts' role in the offense, or whether Kellen Moore was in that, like, nobody was more invested in Jalen. He was on the phone. I went up. I got a chance to talk to Kellen one-on-one about that. I was like, so these calls that Lincoln was getting, are you getting those calls? It's like, yeah, those conversations still happen. So he's still invested with a quarterback with the most important position on his team.
That's huge.
And he gets production out of that, gets clean operation, and they all have confidence in what they're doing. So all of those speak really well to him as a candidate, I think.
Explain Zack Baun.
A lot of things just came to mind. Couldn't be more different on the field than he is in person.
Oh, yeah, great guy. Yeah.
I think he's getting a little tired of me asking about New Orleans, too. Like, hey, so, you're going back to New Orleans. Like, yeah, I know. We've done this story. But he
won't get asked about that at all this week.
No, but I think he appreciates the journey for sure, because it's funny. He when he signed with the Eagles, I mean, the expectation was he going to be the best special teams player on the team. Even he thought that. Howie thought that. And they've been on the record saying that now. And even whenever he was in OTAs, working with Vic Fangio, he was the one that saw him as an inside linebacker. Howie wanted him as an edge, and Vic was like, I think he might work here. Once he started going through OTAs and playing there, he himself was like, okay, this is cool. I'm getting into this, but when am I going to rush? Like, when am I going to go on the edge? Vic's like, dude, just commit to it. You'll be all right. And he's so there's a lot of gratitude for it, because it's all new.
Yeah.
And he knew he's an insane athlete. Like, y'all know his story and, like, how he could do windmill dunks and stuff in high school from Wisconsin. And they didn't know where to put him there. He could have played any sort of position in college. And to finally have a place where all of that fits and comes out in the best way, you can see his gratitude for that. And I think the newness to it has also helped him out in how he plays the position because, well, two things. One thing on the bad side of it and one thing on the good side of it. Being so new to the position, season opener against Sao Paulo, the Green Bay Packers ran all up and down on this Eagles defense. And I asked him what happened, and Baun was like, cut blocks. I looked on the film, sure enough, he's getting cut all the time. And I was like, so have you never been cut blocked before? He's like, no. I mean, yes, but like never like that. As an inside linebacker against the Saints, played really well on defense against the run game. How? Defending against the cut block. Simple as that. Like, new guy needs to learn something new. And towards the end of the year, this is where it works out in a good sense. I asked him how, what's it like playing behind Jalen Carter? Just heck of an interior defensive lineman, has so much influence on how this defense is played. And he's like, Zack Baun's like, I'm new to this position, and there may be some linebackers that don't like whenever the defensive tackle gets out of himself and like tries to make a play and gets in my way and makes the play or doesn't make the play, and then I look bad. Baun was like, I don't care. I love it. I go to him and I'm like, you just decide where to go. I will make you right. Like, if the play call was like, you go to B gap and I go to A or whatever, and you go the opposite way, I will make you right. I'll go the opposite way. Chances are one of us are going to make the play. It's like he doesn't have the predisposition of what he's supposed to do as a linebacker. Yeah, this is my role. Yeah. And it works out great because Carter is a game record. And Baun, a lot of the times what it looks like, oh, he instinctually jumped the gap there. Like, sometimes it is that, but sometimes it's him and Carter working in tandem and trusting each other. So in conversations, Baun also, also being new to it, was also very open about the transition, like what he was doing wrong. Like, to even tell me that it was cut blocks. Like, some people won't tell you what went wrong. He's like, I got to watch the film again. I'll get back to me. And then, like, you forget and they forget. You move on. No, he was like, dude, I got cut blocked. I got to get better at it. Like, he owned those things. And then his success is like, he has a big old smile and like, so like that's a lot to describe what he's been a part of, but lots of things with Zack Baun.
I'm good. I mean, I could ask a CJ Gardner-Johnson question, I guess. I mean, how's he? The Eagles technically let him go. They didn't let him go as unceremoniously as the Saints did, but they let him get away as a free agent and then brought him back. I mean, is he different 3 years removed from what the Saints didn't want to deal with anymore, I guess?
So there's been differences throughout the year. At the very beginning, let's just two things. The growth of CJ Gardner-Johnson a bit. In Sao Paulo, he didn't play well. And he was getting hit because he got, I think it was blown coverage on something, missed a tackle on another. And I think the worst thing any NFL player could do is pick up their phone and Twitter search their name. Yeah. And then you just get totally angry. But I think that's what he had done because he was talking about the fans, and I was asking him about the game, and he's like, and Jeffrey Lurie is standing there in the locker room. And I wrote this, so it was in the story. He's like, CJ is like, isn't that right, Jeffrey? Like, we should get the fans out on the field and have them open field tackle. Like, and he's using, different words that I can't, I don't know if I can use on this.
And Nick used one earlier today. It's okay.
Yeah. So that was like an okay, that's CJ Gardner-Johnson. That's what I heard. And he would, the very first press conference in training camp, he's like, I know y'all are going to make me the enemy. That's okay. I was like, dude, I don't even know you. Like, I haven't even talked to you yet. But that was kind of the CJ Gardner-Johnson everybody knew. But as the season progressed, you go out to him at his locker, and he was a lot more contained. On the field, it manifests in chaos. Like, some of that is good.
Yes.
And some of that you want, but you want it to be manifested in the places where that's useful and not where it's not. And it's kind of hard to cage that. But I think he did a really good job of that throughout the course of the year because he was now in the locker room. He wasn't like that again when I saw the first week. And then on the field, he got thrown out against the Commanders game, and there are a lot of people that feel like that was unfair. But you see CJ come out, and then he did give the Commanders fans the double bird, but that's also a rivalry. And some Eagles people like that. So, at the end of the year, he's been productive, and I know that The Athletic, whenever we did a poll throughout the NFL, one of the questions, who's the most annoying player in the league? And
Oh, yeah.
far and away was CJ Gardner-Johnson. And I think definitely with Eagles players this year, and it might be because of the success, generally in a dysfunctional team that's losing, that kind of player can be a problem. And maybe it works out because of the success they're having, but I don't know. That's conjecture. But as far as I can tell, it's like, I'm glad he's on my side. That kind of feeling. So as long as he's on your team in that sense, and I think he's learned a little bit and contained that a bit throughout the year.
If the Eagles win on Sunday, what do they have to do?
They need to do what they've been doing, which is not turn the ball over, get them to turn the ball over, and then grind them out with Saquon Barkley, which I think they can do. You look at the way the Chiefs have played throughout the playoffs. If the Texans had any semblance of an offense, I think they would have knocked the Chiefs out. Defensively, the Eagles have been turning the ball over, getting teams to turn the ball over a lot in this playoff run. And Jalen Hurts is part of the reason why he's been a conservative quarterback. Don't throw it, take a sack, punt. This defense is going to get it done. I think that kind of football helps you control a game, and you might be up 8 or 9 points at the end, and then Mahomes can't kill you.
Yep.
And even if they are in that position, there are two key things throughout this year. Commanders, whenever Jalen Hurts went out in Washington, they drove the field, beat him. Commanders did. Then, in the playoffs against the Rams, the Rams are hanging around, and then the defense comes through and stops Matt Stafford, who was slinging the ball, looking really well, and they got a chance to stop that. If you sub in Pat Mahomes, I still don't have confidence to think if the game, there's a minute left and he has time to get there, I think the Chiefs win, but I think all the pieces are there for them to have control of the game and not be in a position where they might be executed by the guy that's done that quite well.
Do they talk about the officials at all? Is there anything from the Eagles about that?
No, I haven't asked about it, so maybe that's poor choice on my end. But
I don't know if it's a real thing or not, and it's not. They probably just ignore it anyhow.
Yeah, that's why I don't ask it.
Yeah,
I'm like, all right, what are you gonna say?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they suck. You get. Oh yeah, I want a $25,000 fine. Yeah,
but as soon as the game ends, they all say, "We knew coming into the game it was going to be us against the officials." The
Texans said that
they are talking about it.
Yeah, right.
But they're not going to publicly talk about it, I'm sure.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is just me, and you think about how the defense has played, and the one thing that this is not a new opinion, but watching Patrick Mahomes against the Texans, and he's running out of bounds and decides to turn around, run back into danger, slide, and then the two guys don't even touch him, and then he gets flagged. So if I'm thinking about that as a defensive player, okay, so you're going to flag me anyway. I might as well earn it.
Yeah.
So if I'm Patrick Mahomes, I hate what's happened at this point, because if defensive players are now just playing with reckless abandon, knowing that they're going to get the flag anyway, those first couple of drives, man.
Yeah.
Talk about player safety. No. If they feel like they're going to get the flag anyway, then you might as well earn it.
Yeah.
So how's that going to play out? If I'm the officials, I'm having a conversation with both teams going into this, being very open about what's happened and saying, this is how we're going to call it today. I know that everybody does their due diligence going in and studying officials. That's one of the interesting things about the Eagles is their staff. Some of the players get reports about reps and what they call. What are their tendencies? Do they get you on holds here in this situation and this and that? They'll have that information. So it's in their heads. That's one of Vic Fangio's influences too, is not just officials, but tells and things. It's very much as a couple of players have described it to me. They throw a bunch of stuff at you, take it or leave it. Don't play free, but I want to give you as much information as possible. Officials is one of it.
That's our guy Brooks. If he hits you, he's going to earn it. So don't put yourself in a position to get hit by Brooks.
Well, I'm from the great 0-10 Clear Lake team. Nobody was worried about me.
Appreciate the time, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ochsner Hospital for Orthopedics and Sports Medicine on Clearview Parkway is celebrating 5 years of exceptional achievements. The hospital's integrated team has successfully performed over 20,000 surgeries using the latest in cutting-edge technology. With nationally recognized services and impactful partnerships, they continue to lead the advancement of orthopedic and sports medicine care in our region.
Rouse's Markets is voted best grocery store in New Orleans, best grocery store in Baton Rouge, Mississippi, Gulf Coast, Thibodaux, Homa, Hammond, Lake Charles, Mobile, year after year. Thank you for choosing us best grocery store on the Gulf Coast. Number one. Thank you.
Thank you.
The number one grocery store.
In Mississippi, Alabama,
Louisiana. 1 million customers a week can't be wrong. Welcome to Rouse's.
The NewOrleans.Football show is proudly presented by PJ's Coffee. PJ's Coffee has some of the best drinks that you can find. They have locations all over the city. They have pastries and everything else you need to get your day started. So go check them out. NewOrleans.Football is proudly sponsored by Urban South Brewery, the makers of Paradise Park Lager. I love supporting local breweries, and when looking for a refreshing, easy drinking beer, I always recommend Paradise Park. In fact, I think it might be the best game day beer out there. If you want something a little lighter, try Paradise Light. It's everything I love about Paradise Park with just 96 calories and 2.6 carbs. And if you're looking for a family-friendly place to watch the game, I'd recommend Urban South's Tap Room in the Lower Garden District. They've got 15 TVs, 30 unique beers on tap, and mouth-watering urban smash burgers. The whole family will want to make Urban South their new living room, because at Urban South, they take laid back seriously. Looking for the best insurance coverage at the lowest price? Look no further than Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency. They are a local independent insurance agency right here in New Orleans, specializing in home, flood, and auto insurance. At Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency, their dedicated team will shop every available carrier in the market, ensuring you get the most comprehensive coverage at the lowest possible price. Why settle for less when you can have the best? Trust Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency, to protect what matters most to you. I do. I've been a client of theirs since 2021. Call them today at 504-326-6526 or visit them online at Protected by Chabert. That's 504-326-6526. Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency, your local insurance experts. Hardhide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey is an 86 proof blend of aged wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries. Blended in New Orleans, it is not for the thin-skinned. Look for it in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants. NewOrleans.Football is proud to be sponsored by Firehouse Subs. Make sure you check out their location on Veterans Boulevard. Attention Saints fans, don't let pests and termites invade your home field. Trust the team at Red Pest Solutions to tackle those unwelcome visitors. Call the Red Man today for unbeatable pest and termite control. Score peace with no pest. Visit redpest.com, REDDPEST.com.
Welcome back to the Ochsner Injury Sports Medicine Institute podcast studio here on Radio Row. This week, Roger Goodell, annual press conference, pretty boring. Some embarrassing questions overall in there. It's the weirdest thing I think the league does.
Let's reenact it. Roger, this is a major problem that a lot of people are concerned with. Goodell, I don't see that as a concern.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Here's another major problem that people see as a great concern. I don't see that as a concern. You're wrong. Next question.
Yeah. There are a couple. I mean, look, that whole setup is so weird to me, too. Like they only allow X amount of people in, and then you have to be, like, pre-selected to ask a question and everything. Like, it's the most controlled environment in the world. And I get why they do it, but it's also, like, I don't know. Like, he gets asked some questions. They allow some through, but they aren't letting everybody in there. I was, like, a little worried that, like, some stuff wasn't going to ask. It ended up did. But one of the things he did talk about that was at least somewhat interesting. He got asked about the upcoming 18-game season. I think he said it would be like 5 or 6 seasons away or whatever, but it did kind of sound like that's the direction it's going. I think everybody expects it to end up being 18 games. Are there any positives to that?
Yeah, I mean, look, the NFLPA press conference just ended right about the time we're recording, and they're coming out strongly against it. They're saying how crazy it is. And who am I to roll my eyes at a player saying the difference between 17 and 18 is ridiculous? Like Austin Eckler said, it takes my ankles months to heal. I think he was one of the guys who spoke today. And he goes, I just think it's preposterous that they're going to add more games onto it. Great. Amen. If you feel that way, I'm not going to say that's wrong. It feels like 17 was a step to 18 all along. They didn't do 2 at once. I bet they stop at 18. But they're going to get to 18. It's going to bring a lot more money in for the players, too. They're going to get a lot of concessions about practice time. Here's what I want to see with it, though. I want to see 2 bye weeks. I want to see a longer season. I want to see every team get a bye week before their Thursday night game. That's what's ridiculous. Ever having only 3 days off between games. I don't want to see any, it's Christmas Day, so you're playing on Saturday, then Wednesday, then Monday in a 3-day stretch. 18 games, cool. Let's make it 20 weeks, and let's never make anyone play with only 3 days off. Yeah, maybe that'll be bad for the TV networks every once in a while when six teams are off and you have to show the Jaguars, Texans as your game of the week, but people are still going to watch. Like, use some common sense in it. Give them more time off during the season. I like when they shortened the preseason and they gave them that whole week off before the season started. Just that could be the concessions, but it's going to be 18. I think the product supports 18. I mean, late in the season does kind of stink when a lot of the playoff teams are already set up or whatever, but it's going to be 18. I bet it'll end there, but it's getting there, so let's do it in a smart way.
Until, like, they add, like, 18 more on top of it, and there's, like, you know, the spring winter and the fall winter, and, like,
yeah.
They have the Super Bowl of the in-season tournament, all that stuff. I don't know. I could see it getting longer at some point. Like, they would have to build in more breaks or whatever. I don't know when they'll ever stop because these are, like, some greedy individuals. Yeah. 18 feels like the max, though. Like, if it went beyond 18, it does feel like the max. Like you said, I can't ignore what the players are saying. If the players are saying it makes them unsafe, it exposes them to injury or all that. Outside, like, I'm just going to side with that on my argument.
Of course.
But as a consumer of the game, man, if you wanted to get rid of the preseason and just go to, 18 games and everybody has a couple joint practices or whatever, I would be in favor of that. I don't really need to watch the preseason. Take it down to one game or something so that your, dreamers can get their chance to make their case or whatever. If you're contracting that and adding games, to me that feels like, a sensible swap. But if again, it's not real football in the preseason. If the players are saying it, I'm on their side. But yeah, I'm not against more. I'm just against more of the, like with you, in sort of how it's done.
Yeah.
Those are the things that kind of bother me.
I also don't like the trend. I mean, look, we talked to Tyrann Mathieu, came out really strong against it. There's not enough practices. There's not enough tackling. I don't know about eliminating the preseason completely, and I don't know about being like, all right, you have to write in that we only have pads on for 5 practices a year while we're doing 18 games. I think that could dilute the product, too. I mean, they have to take all of this into consideration.
Yeah. I mean, shoot, the product's already – the defense at the beginning of the season is already bad. So that would be a downside. But, look, a lot of teams are only playing like a series anyhow in the preseason.
I know. They're not using those games.
Yeah,
anyway.
I mean, it sucks. Like, play like a 6-quarter – like, have one 6-quarter game. First 2 quarters for, like, the starters and then the rest are for the schemers or something. I don't know. But I think, like, that would end up ultimately being the trade-off. And, I'm
sure they'll go to 2 preseason games when they go to 18 regular season games too. They like their even numbers so everybody can charge full price tickets for that home preseason game too.
Yeah, that's right.
And well, although I say they like even numbers, the other thing they're going to do is they're going to start making every team play internationally once a year too. And I guess they'll make that a home game for a team, so it'll still be an even number. But I guarantee we're going to see that too. And yet another reason why I think they should expand the number of weeks off. Should also get a bye after every single time.
I hate the internet game straight up. Like it's cool, like for those fans to get their experience or whatever. Like I'm not against that, but it really sucks having to go over there to watch a game. We talked to Blake Grupe here earlier this week. We're going to change our shirts again for that, and we'll be right back with more show after the Grupe interview. All right, and we are joined now by Saints kicker Blake Grupe. Rizzy's leaving, potentially, possibly a new coach coming in. How does that affect you as you do your job and prepare for the new season?
Yeah, obviously this week's crazy with everything going on in here, and I absolutely know nothing other than just next week I'm going to start kicking and start working my way back into preparing for year 3. So curious to see what happens, and I'm sure you'll find out probably before I do, but we'll see. I'm excited to see what's going on and start building to year 3.
What's the offseason look like for you? Is it just a lot of kicking, someone shagging balls? Like what's it kind of look like?
A little bit, kind of been building up a little bit in the weight room a little bit, and but I like bouncing around. I'll go home for a little bit. I like when I go to home, I use Mizzou's facilities. I know some of their guys and a little bit of lifting, a little bit of kicking, mixing some stuff in between. But you like to travel around. A lot of guys go out to San Diego. Some guys go down to Orlando and Florida. So we'll be bouncing around, hitting it in wherever I can. So, but we'll be ready.
Do you kind of like diagnose the things that you want to get better at? Like, can you feel like little things in your leg? You're like, all right, I'm going to focus on this during the off season. Like, is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, for sure. Physically, tightening up and strengthening up little things, in your hips and stuff that I dealt with before. And then on the field, you kind of just sit back in the season, a little bit of film study, a little bit just like, you reflect on it. And, of the 4 misses we had this year, I'd say, honestly, 2 of them were just a mental thing going right into the kick. And 2 of them one of them was a condition and one of them was a 60-yarder in MetLife.
Yeah.
So there's little things you can do here and there. But for me personally, I'm just going to, continue to master that routine of mine and just hone in on the little things and getting myself comfortable with everything going on and going into year 3.
Is there mental training that goes with it too?
For sure. I mean, I'm sure there's mental coaches and everything I could get a hold out up there. Thankfully I've had some pretty good sports psych strength coaches coming through college. And so they've helped work me through things. And then when we were in San Diego last year, we had like a lot of different pros out there. There's probably 8 or 9 kickers, punters, snappers, the whole deal. And so all across the league. So me personally, just being around some of those other guys as the young one, picking up little things from them. And then we had like a little bit of a kind of a mental performance type meeting. So, you can go out and seek out some of that. And, I'm sure I will work through some of that this year. But for me personally, I feel like I was in a really good groove this last season. Some games I would go out there and absolutely like light up warm-ups and just not necessarily get a chance to show what I felt like I could do in the game. And so, I didn't want to stop at all. I wanted to keep kicking, but you can't really do that. You got to give your body a little bit of a break. So, I feel like where I'm at right now is really good, and I continue to improve, obviously. But I like where I'm at. So I just want to keep building on that and, continue to improve we'll keep going.
I was going to ask you about that. Just going into, you're not a rookie, a young guy anymore. Like you're here, you belong, you've arrived, you beat out people. Like, just how much confidence does that give you in just doing your job, knowing that, now you got this body of work, felt good all last year. Like there's just really, you aren't necessarily proving yourself, but you are. I mean, you always are as a player, but like, just knowing that you have those building blocks behind you.
I mean, every year, regardless if there's, somebody in camp or you're just competing against yourself, you're also competing against the other 31, in the league. So, but I know me personally, having guys in camp like that, it drives competition. Obviously, it drives, you have to be your best or else you ain't going to make it. So that's just how it goes. That's the NFL. I mean, if you think it's going to be a cakewalk, you're not going to make it. So, that's nothing new to me. I dealt with it in college as well. And so, you go into camp every single day like it's your last, and you had no choice to. So that I feel like that really carries over into being prepared and taking care of business on Sundays.
I'm going to throw you an alley-oop here because I know you live here year-round, and people love the Saints players that stay here kind of year-round. What about the city has kind of gripped you and keeps you here?
I mean, that's exactly what I'm doing today. A lot of guys take off and go all across the country. I stay pretty much here year-round. I love the city. I was down in Venice, Louisiana a couple days ago, Morgan City last week. I mean, I've been all around the state, and I really enjoy it down here. Where there's food, where there's events. Where I grew up, not a whole lot of stuff's going on in my hometown, and if I do, I got to drive somewhere. So it's nice having stuff in your backyard, and I'm not here promoting any sort of big brands or necessarily getting paid for any of it, but I'm just here hanging out and getting out and kind of spreading what I can do and my message, my story.
Yeah. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Total Maintenance is one of the largest locally owned home and commercial service providers in South Louisiana and serve the greater New Orleans and Baton Rouge markets. They have a membership program that gets you 2 tune-up visits for AC and heating, as well as club membership discounts of 15% on all repairs, half off of all diagnostic charges, and 3-year warranties on most repairs for membership clients. This is usually priced at the low price of $24.95 a month per system, but if you tell Total Maintenance that you found them through NOF, they'll lower the price to $20.95 per month per system for as long as you keep the membership active. Services include AC and heating service and replacement, electrical service, plumbing service, as well as generator service and installation. They are Total Maintenance. Find them at tm-ac.com or give them a call at 504-841-3300, or if you're in the Baton Rouge area, 225-480-1000. Martin's is your go-to destination for everything merry and bright this holiday season. From an unmatched selection of bourbon, whiskeys, and wines to gourmet food, gift baskets, and catering, Martin's has all your holiday needs covered. Family owned and operated since 1946, Martin's knows the perfect ways to celebrate this season with loved ones. Visit them in Metairie, New Orleans, or Baton Rouge, or shop online for the ultimate convenience. Whether you're raising a glass or looking for the perfect holiday gift, make it an easy and cheerful holiday with Martin's.
Welcome to the Queen Casino, the crown jewel of entertainment destinations. From the thrill of gaming, where every spin and deal brings you closer to fortune, to the excitement of sports betting, where you can feel the rush of victory. Our spaces and catering menu are perfect for any event. From business meetings to grand celebrations, immerse yourself in our vibrant atmosphere with live music that keeps the party going all night long. Join us at the Queen Casino. Your royal adventure awaits.
Welcome back to the Ochsner Injury Sports Medicine Institute podcast studio. It is now time for the Martin's question of the day. Martin's is home to a wide selection of hand-picked barrel select bourbon, whiskeys, and more. Martin's, so much more than just wine. All right. If the Saints hire Kellen Moore, and we expect them to hire Kellen Moore. We expect Kellen Moore to be the next head coach of the New Orleans Saints. We expect that to probably happen early next week. But the question is, if they hire him, do you see him bringing in Bobby Slowik as the offensive coordinator?
I mean, my first thought is that it doesn't feel like a system match because Bobby Slowik obviously has been running the Shanahan system, and that's not exactly what Kellen Moore runs. But, then again, Kellen Moore just, he called plays in Mike McCarthy's offense. He called plays in Nick Sirianni's offense. A good coach is a good coach. Maybe Bobby Slowik would like the idea of learning another system, be a guy he'd love to work for maybe and pad his own resume. So I guess I can't cancel it out, but I don't make the natural correlation. I'm going to bet on either Doug Nussmeier, who has followed him now on 3 straight stops and would finally get a chance to be promoted. This would be a big opportunity for him after he's stuck with Kellen Moore so long. Or B, the best opportunity to lure in the top offensive line coach. I mean, I don't think you can get Jeff Stoutland from the Eagles, but that'd be the best thing to pair with his offense is the best possible offensive line coach you can get. Those would be the 2 likely paths I would see.
Yeah, I'm going Nussmeier or Zach Strief. I think those are my guesses on it. See how it comes together. I think Nuss is probably a better fit just because you want a guy that's kind of versed and has been your right hand and everything.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you can call him senior offensive assistant and quarterbacks coach and still get him. I don't know if it would have to be since he sort of came with him.
I would like to see him on this staff, though. It's just you want someone with their guys. He feels like his guy, feels like he's been his guy kind of everywhere. But, it's going to do it for us on this episode of the show. Appreciate you guys watching, and we'll talk to you next time.